Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Strong Christian Female. And today we get to talk about something I love to talk about, which is keeping your body in line with what God has called us to do by looking at it through the lens of worthiness. Okay. Amy Connell is a nutrition coach. She is also a fitness coach. She knows so much information about this topic. She's also had her own personal journey, which she talks about. Her passion for this is contagious and not condemning. If you're someone who has either struggled with how you feel about your body, or maybe right now you're in a really difficult shift with your life and your body doesn't look like it did even last year or definitely before 2020, she's your gal because she tells truth in love. Her mission is to have people healthy at the size that they are at, but continue on that journey to wholeness in how you treat your body by seeing yourself as worthy, because God is who you serve, and He is the lens we're to look at our life through His word, through His gospel, and through His love for us. And out of love for us, listen, we are supposed to take care of our bodies to the best that we can without condemnation or legalism. So that's why I love her. She is not one who is a slave to the process, as she talks about. She is really someone who is just trying to honor God in her decisions, but also realizing that we live in a world that is hard to keep up with the schedule. It's hard to keep up with lots of different things. So where's the true grace in this that tells you the truth in love, holds you accountable, but also realizes that you're a human being who is taking this one day at a time? She's your gal. She's amazing. Amy Connell. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Strong Christian Female. And as you just heard today, we are talking to Amy Connell. And I have to be honest with you, this is an interview I've been looking forward to because so much of what she talks about resonates in my own heart. There is a journey, which many of you know I'm not going into right now, of learning how to honor God through what I put in my mouth and through what I did with my body. And it was a very long process that I would love for everybody to streamline. So that's why Amy's here. Amy, thank you so much for being here. I know we talked about this before everybody else saw your beautiful face, but you're in Texas, in Houston. As you can tell, I'm in a beanie, as Amy noticed, and she's in short sleeves. So the weather's a little different where each of us are, but I love that. I love that we can connect from all over the world if we just want to. And the body of Christ is all over the world. So this is really exciting. So Amy, I'm just going to start by throwing you the mic and just saying, how did you become so passionate about what you do?
That is a great question. It is a little bit loaded, so I will try and keep it somewhat short.
We're here
And
to
first of
listen.
all, also, I have to say Montana is where all the Texans go in the summer, as I'm sure you're aware.
100%. 100%. And everyone swears it's because of the, 150 years ago, the cattle drives that were all connected. They're like, well, the only people Montanans accept are Texans. So I was born in Texas, everybody, and I lived there till I was 9, and I throw that card down all the time. And if my kids are wearing Cowboys gear, Dallas Cowboys from their uncle, I can't, it's amazing how many people stop us. They're like, are you from Texas? So yeah,
Yeah,
it is where they go in the summer because it's not
because
cool
it's
here.
livable, yes, and
Mhm.
gorgeous. And all of the Yellowstone franchise has not hurt the
No, it
public
hasn't.
relations for marketing. But that's not why we're here.
Although, y'all, we don't up here like to just randomly plan murders or anything like that. Like, I mean, Yellowstone's a little intense. I haven't actually watched the show, but people will give me a play-by-play. I'm like, this is a terrible show.
I know, I know. Isn't
No,
that
and
how
I'm
it is,
not
though?
liking it. I think I would be sucked in with both hands. I have kids and I keep myself busy. But no, I have heard so many good things about that show, but I actually haven't watched it yet. And it's like a 40-minute drive, the set. We drove my relatives down when they visited. We're like, let's just go for a drive and go see the Yellowstone set. It's just a big old ranch that's 40 minutes from my house.
Oh, interesting.
So Amy, if you
Well,
ever visit, I will drive you there.
there we go. There we go. Field trip. No, it is an interesting show. And anyway, we could go off on that. But first of all, Charity, thank you for inviting me. And I am equally excited to spend this time with you. We had a few minutes before and I think we have like 2 hours worth of things to talk about
Oh
when
my
we're done.
gosh.
So
Ladies, you
I'm
don't
really
even
thrilled to
know.
be here.
Don't be surprised if Amy's back in a month, because she and I will not get to everything we want to talk about, and that's okay.
That's great. With pleasure, I will do that. Yes. So you asked about like what drives my passion. Why am I here? Why do I love doing what I'm doing? Uh, the very short answer is I grew up. I can't remember a time when I didn't have body image issues growing up. And I can decipher some of that, but what I'm realizing is my story is not unique in that I just can't remember a time not having body image issues. It's very rare for me to talk to a woman who hasn't struggled in one way or another, either feeling like they're too big or, their mom leaning over saying, let's get some meat on those bones. So it's just like, I mean, seriously. Um, I grew up dancing. I have a joy and a love of moving my body. I know that that's not how everybody is, but that was part of my path. And I spent a lot of time in the gym. I found a lot of joy doing that. I found a lot of empowerment in doing different types of movements. Just to put things in perspective, I was born in 1974, so I won't make your listeners do the math. That means I'm
Okay.
48. But that I think that will help for those listeners who are around my age, the kinds of images we grew up seeing,
Yep.
which is skinny white woman. That's all there was. And
Mhm.
if that's not what you look like, then, then there was, then you
It was
quote, didn't
Cher
have a good
from
body.
Sonny and Cher. It was like Twiggy and Cher and just like super, super scrawny, tall women.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And because I was always trying to manipulate my body, because I was always trying to lose 5 pounds, always or more, I really turned into trying to just enjoy moving my body to being obsessed and really idolizing the process and idolizing the vision of what I thought my body was supposed to look like. Like I literally cut out a picture from a magazine of like that was my goal. That was, what, this girl was probably 5 inches taller than I am. She had olive skin. I mean, I'm fair skin. You and I have very similar
Yeah.
colorings.
Not a lot of
I'm
melanin going on
no,
over here.
no, and kind of reddish hair. Like I mean, like there was no way in a million years I was going to look like this girl, either from skin and all of that to my body shape and my body type. When I had kids, that turned into even more of an obsession because I wanted to be a hot mom, and I
Yeah.
won't use the term that's in American Pie
Yes,
for anyone who
I
has.
do understand. Yeah.
Okay, so
When I
this
was
is a
younger, I didn't
family
know what that
friendly
meant. I
show.
was like, "What does that mean?" Someone told me. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Yeah. So now I know, and I can't undo it, but it's
Right,
there. It's the
but now we
culture
know,
says it.
and
Absolutely.
yes. And that's kind of what I was shooting for. So it was just this process that compounded and compounded. And did I ever, was I ever happy with how I looked? No. Did I ever feel like however I was eating was good enough? No. I did recognize that I was moving enough because I was quite honestly over exercising. Now, in that period of time, I was also invested in a Bible study that was just a wonderful place to connect with other women, to be honest with other women about what was going on. And as I was getting more and more obsessed about all things health, I was also growing my relationship in Jesus. Well, what that turned into was one day I remember sitting at the table, or I was folding laundry, and I remember God saying, you are spending more time thinking about what you're going to eat and how you're going to exercise than you are about your relationship with me. Now, I wish that I could have like done a 180, turned around and went the other way, but that planted a seed and just started growing. At the same time, by the way, I'm so sorry. I told you this is going to be short, and it's not short, but I
I
am
know.
going to,
I'm all ears. I'm like just listening, going, "Oh, that's good. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that happened to me.
Well,
Oh, I thought about that." No, testimonies are like, to me, they're literally the gospel. So just, I love it. I love it.
well,
Keep
this is
going.
true. This is true. Yes. Jesus taught in stories.
Yep.
But I started realizing that I needed some more element of balance in my life, and I was idolizing the process. I mean, you use that word legalistic, and that it was good food, bad food, yes, no, right, wrong, green, red. I mean, whatever it was. And God started kind of giving me this perspective and lens of balance, of grace in my body, grace in my eating and my movement. And then I started having conversations with other people and realized that I was not alone. This was, I mean, it didn't matter where people fell on the spectrum of health. It was either like, I eat McDonald's every day, all day, and I feel horrible about it, or I am like to a T eating the way that I think is quote unquote the right way. And everybody felt shame in one way or another. So then the next section of that is I was in a season where everything was going right. We had just built a house. I mean, this was like all of the things were lining up where everything was like, should have been perfect. And I was in a season of just being so unsettled. And I was crying and I was confused. And I just remember like crying in Bible study saying, I know God is trying to tell me something and I'm ready. I'm here and I don't know what it is because I just was so unsettled. Well, I was unsettled because God had been whispering to me for a long time, you need to write. And instead of writing, I stuck my fingers in my ears and said, I'm not listening. I'm not listening. The world does not need another health and fitness blogger.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody will tell you, like, you just look at you just go to YouTube and you
Mm-hmm.
go Christian, nutrition, whatever and there's 1,000 people and you're like, why
Right.
would God be telling me to do this? I'm white noise. Like I told myself for years, I will just be white noise. What is the point? Yep.
Exactly. Exactly. But then I learned what happened when I told him, when I argued with God,
Oh yeah.
and that didn't go out very well. So
Usually doesn't. Yeah.
yeah. So I decided to listen. And basically, God said, He just kind of whispered, I want you to write. I want you to write about your journey, write about balance, write about finding grace in all things, and which is why everything I am online, almost everywhere, is graced health. And just kind of start getting that message out. So that's what I started doing. And he said, you're going to write a book one day. I'm not going to tell you what it's going to be about. I'm not going to tell you when to write it, but I'll let you know when it does. And so that came during COVID. So I like to say my book is called Your Worthy Body. And I like to say it's my COVID-19 baby because it's what I wrote then. But
Who knew?
I was I was too old to be having babies during COVID-19, that's for sure. Much older than I would want to be. So my passion really has come from being obedient and listening and just stepping into and trusting what God has been asking me to do and just taking that next step. But I will tell you that it has the most fun I have had doing any kind of job in my life, which I hope my kids aren't listening because I was a stay-at-home mom for a while.
We don't look at that as jobs, kids. That's our calling. It's our calling, not our job. So that's not what she means.
That's right. That's right. I love you. I love you boys. I love you boys. But it's just fun. I love getting up. I love thinking. I love strategizing and all of that. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
where all of the passion comes is quite honestly, I mean, to sum it up, blind obedience
Yes.
and going from broken um to just taking that next step and allowing myself to be healed.
Oh my gosh, Amy, there's so many things I could ask. And I know my listeners know this. I listen and I hone in on something. But what you just said was blind obedience. I think so many of us complicate our walk with Jesus and our what the world would call purpose, or whatever dumb word. Honestly, we all put something on there. But if we aren't willing to be unrelentingly obedient to Jesus Christ, nothing will satisfy, because we all screw it up trying to do it our way. Because I was just I'm reading this book, and gosh, she's so good. And one of the things she says is, we without the redeeming nature of Christ in our lives, every human from Eve until now have served no one but themselves. And our lens that we put on, that little I am, so we take the I am from God and we put the I am on us. And if we like ourselves, that I am is amazing and wonderful and capable and confident and arrogant, and whatever it is we become because of that pride. Well, if we hate ourselves, that I am is useless and worthless and incapable and isn't liked by people and is unloved. And so when we obey Jesus and make him the I am of our lives, our ability comes through him and not ourselves. Like you just said, I wrote a book. My COVID baby was my book. The crazy thing is you might have never written that book if you hadn't made him I am. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not the best writer. And I'm really brutal on, God, does that sound good? And I don't know what voice or tense or this, I overthink it. And so for years, I just never put any pen to paper. Um, but I love hearing what you were talking about too. Is just not only the blind obedience, but when you walk in blind obedience and you are just relentlessly pursuing God's heart, you really are trying to base everything you do on his calling in your life. And I know your book touches on this, where you talk about how do you then, I'm gonna rephrase my question. I was going in one direction. But from your perspective and your journey and your training of other people in this area, how do you help it, people see how to base God's calling in their life on honoring their body?
Yes. I mean, you touched on this a little bit, and I will say, just for people who aren't familiar with me, my entire ministry is summed up in we take care of ourselves so we can fulfill our calling, fulfill our purpose,
Yes.
whatever the plan is. I mean, it could, like you said, there's a lot of different ways that we can do that.
Yeah.
And then I said that, and I'm so sorry, I forgot the direction you wanted me to take that.
Oh, no, it's 100% you're going in the right direction. What would be a simple, applicable goal? Like, I know everybody's unique, everybody's different. I'm going to be frank. My family history is morbid obesity and diabetes, stroke, cardiac arrest, like you name it. That's my family history coming and going. And it is not out of and I'm not hardened to that reality of that. But let's say you were approaching someone, let's just say me. My listeners know that my Achilles heel that I fight is overeating. And just because someone looks healthy doesn't mean that they don't struggle with honoring their body. Like you were saying, some people, those hyper athletes, man, they walk a fine line between eating disorder and discipline. And that's a balance for them. They've got to bring before the Lord. Others of us, we've gotten a lot of things under control because of accountability and because of structure in our lives, but that impulse is still there, and we mess up. So when you reframe people's minds to go from self, essentially, let's be honest, it's self, whether we want to be honest about that or not. For me, it was self. I want to look this way. I want to weigh this much. And then we shift it to like, wait, let's shift that mindset of self, that I am personal, selfish mindset, to he is, therefore I am
Right.
mindset. What's maybe one starting point you try to give people out of grace to see that they're in a place maybe where they haven't made God the Lord of their life in this area? How do you shift their focus a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I think I would recommend, or I would encourage people to take the lens of I'm taking care of myself so I can do what I'm called to do. Now, let
Mhm.
me unpack
100%.
that a little bit, because often as Christians, when we hear the word calling or
Yeah.
purpose or something like that, we think of Moses and the burning bush, right?
100%.
It is God coming down and Moses.
Woo! Oh yeah.
Yes.
You
And
hit
it's
the
the
highlight reel of the Bible and you're like, well, those people had a calling. I'm just a stay-at-home mom, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. So I would really love to reframe, not reframe, but unpack this whole thing of calling.
Yeah.
So in the book, I actually offer 5 different types of callings. And I don't know that this is comprehensive, but this was something that just kind of came to me. And I think it will help people feel confident in various areas of their life. So yes, there are those what I call macro callings, Moses in the burning bush. But there's also maybe like a servanthood calling. So that would be, again, in our highlight reel of Bible stories, that's Aaron, who accompanied Moses. And he was a mediator and he helped hold up Moses's arms. And he was a really integral part in freeing the Israelites, right? But he didn't get the headliner position. If Moses did. Yes. And then it's yeah, I know, and poor Moses, he didn't even wanna be Moses, but that's that's a different story. But yes, but it might be that maybe our calling, even just for the day, is to serve someone, to be a shoulder or be sitting. I've got someone in my life who's going through some hard things, and I'm like, "You know what I need to do? I need to be rested and well-fueled, and my mental health needs to be well so I can be a sense of support for that person." So that's a servanthood one calling. Maybe it's just a little micro calling. So maybe like again taking into account my day today, I knew I was going to be speaking with you. I knew we had a 12 o'clock appointment, 12 o'clock p.m. appointment, and I wanted to be clear headed. I wanted to be physically ready. So yes, I moved even though I really didn't feel like it today. I got a very short workout in, and then I made sure that I had a lunch that made me feel well with like real vegetables and proteins and stuff and carbs too, by the way. Carbs are not the enemy, but where I knew that my mind was going to be clear headed so we could have this conversation. So little micro callings. Maybe that is, I mean, as if you are staying at home with your littles, maybe that's so you can have the patience at 4 p.m. during that crazy witching hour, or when you're putting your kids to bed and you're exhausted. So just having that sense of loving others, helping others in that servanthood role, that might be enough to help you make those decisions to eat the right amount of food, eat the foods that make you feel well, move your body so you can move your body enough to give you a little more energy, but not to go so much that you deplete your energy. So that's the second one. So there's or a third one. So macro, and then micro, with those smaller ones, servanthood. Another one is creative callings. I mean, I tell you what, I am not, I call myself a creative because I do more online creative and write and that kind of stuff. But it is really incredible the kinds of things that people come up with. And if you are someone who likes to paint or draw, or I mean, whatever it is, when you put that out there, you are blessing others, you are encouraging others. And even if you don't even mention the word Jesus, but it is coming from a place of love and just encouragement, I mean, that can absolutely be beneficial. And so that is what I would definitely call a creative calling. Another one is, and then so the fifth one, if I think I've covered all of these, is what I call a seasonal calling. So I'm on my phase three. I worked in the corporate world. I stayed at home with my kids for about 12 years. And then I stepped into this. Now, is God going to have me I'm 48. Is God going to have me doing this when I'm 68? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, this is to me a seasonal thing. It might be a season in the last 10 years. You might be in something for 10 months that God is really asking you to focus on. So what I would encourage people to do is think about the different types of purpose, not to overuse the word calling, but think about what purpose you may have in your day-to-day life, in the life of the season that you are in. And maybe not even, I don't want to say burden yourself, but pressure yourself to come up with a macro calling. That may not be where God wants you right now. He may be having you, again, I'm stay at home mom, you're like in the trenches, just working yourself out through the weeds every day so you can lay down and rest and then do it all again. And at the same time, again, putting the foods in that make you feel well and moving your body so that you can have the energy to play with your kids. Or if you are on the other side of this and you've got grandkids, I have a lot of women in my community who want to move and take care of themselves because they want the energy for their grandkids. And so having that future focus as well, I think is helpful, but just taking it off ourselves and not seeing if the scale is going to validate our efforts, but if what we are doing and what God is asking it to do, us to do, if that can validate our efforts, because that is that He is that you were talking about rather than I am. Who cares if I am 3 pounds lighter? I mean, sure, I'd take it, but does it really matter anything? No. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. No, and I think we get stuck on the I am of ourselves. And there's such a deficit to that because there's two things that happen at once. Number one, there are times God says, he's saying, start where you are. Stop trying to already be so far down the road, and because you're not there, you've already failed, and you won't even start because you feel like the journey is so long, or you label whatever it is you have to overcome. Or for some of us that we have tried and failed, we think, God, and just in the trying again we failed, and we talk ourselves out of it, whatever it is, whether it's a healthy marriage, whether it's a healthy body, whether it's a healthy relationships, whether it's a church. We were like, we're just going to fail again. So this false future, we won't give it to ourselves. And that's because, like you said, we aren't doing these small things along the way to find satisfaction in what God has equipped us to do, despite the fact we're not who we want to be yet. But you talked about so many things, and I know, backing up a tiny bit, one of the things you said was we can idealize the process. We can make an idol of the process rather than experiencing the process and learning from it. We've I don't know about everybody, but I know people, they are amazing in the sense of, like, they are go-getters and type A, and if they do CrossFit, they're going to win CrossFit, and if they're going to do this, they're going to win this, and there is nothing wrong with what they're doing, but the process is such an idol in their lives. They're a slave to it, and it's hard for me to want to come over their way because I'm like, oh, I feel like there's a little bit of unhealthy balance here. And then there's other people that they are healthy and they just like hiking and they love fishing and they love riding their bike, and sure, they compete, but oh no, I mean, even if they're naturally good at it, it doesn't obsess their life. It doesn't, their marriage isn't built around the next triathlon. Their kids aren't raised around the CrossFit games. And I want to be careful here because my prejudice is I'd rather you do that than the opposite, but I don't know that that's healthy. But you did such a beautiful way of just saying, where's God in today? Where is God in my decisions right now? And also, one of the things is grace. When I know what you're talking about when you say grace, but I feel like some people feel that grace means no more rules, no more boundaries, throw everything out the door, because maybe they were raised in a legalistic environment and they were raised to be very good little Pharisees, and God set them free from that mentality. But now they're in this world where they're not really sure where boundaries even are. So can you talk to me about when you say grace and using that, applying that to how we do want to honor our bodies with the Lord? Where's the balance in maybe a misunderstanding of grace, that no boundaries thing, which you and I know is not biblical grace, versus the true biblical grace and applying that? And I feel like you've touched on it already, but I feel like grace is such a big misunderstood topic, and I love that word, but I feel like when people hear it, they hear multiple definitions of it. So what do you mean when you talk about applying grace to this whole journey of health with the Lord?
oh, absolutely. I actually had a woman who's been in ministry for 25 years on my show years ago, and if you want me to, I can send you the link.
Yeah.
But it was, what exactly is grace? And we dug into that.
So good.
So good. So one
So
of the
good.
things that, yes, her name is Emily Baker, and she is fantastic. She's also a childhood friend of mine, but she described it, really summed it up as, it's the opposite of shame.
Mm.
And I think that is one thing to remember. Now, if I could, I would love to step back and, think about just our walk. Let's just put taking care of ourselves, aside for a second. When we are walking with Jesus and we have accepted him into our lives, we hopefully know that we do not have to be perfect because there is only Jesus.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there have been some people who have grown up in churches that push the like, oh, you've got to be perfect. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of that's a different conversation, a lot of, church trauma. But a relationship with Jesus means that you are walking with him, you are trying to be like him, you are trying to love like him, and you are accepting his forgiveness when you're not.
Yeah.
And that is, and to me, that accepting that forgiveness, the difference between our actions and that forgiveness, that's grace. And I don't know if that's a great definition of it or not, but that's kind of how I would describe it.
Yeah.
Now, let's put the lens of health on with that. So, health is recognizing, again, we're taking care of ourselves so we can fulfill our purpose, live out our calling. And how do we do that? Well, we do that by moving our bodies, because Jesus lived in different times.
Yep.
Jesus, when he went from city to city, was walking 9 miles, and not in the hokas that I walk.
Yeah.
And like leather strap sandals, I mean, they moved. They moved. They had a very active lifestyle. They were gathering. They were, they didn't go down to the local grocery store in their vehicles and get curbside pickup and never get out of their car. Like, they were moving.
Yes.
And so I think it's important to remember that moving is part of the lifestyle that God has given us. And that's why we have shoulders and legs that are meant to
Mhm.
move in all kinds of different directions, not just with our elbows slumped into our rib cage and our knees, parallel to our hips in a sitting position, sitting at a
Yeah.
computer. I
100%.
Yeah, so remembering that this is a way that God designed our bodies to move, and he gave us foods.
Yeah.
He gave us foods. And people ask me all the time, "Oh, what should I be eating?" And I'm like, "Ugh, first of all, I'm not a registered dietitian. I am a certified nutrition coach, but I think it all comes down to, can you identify the food that you're eating and where it came from?
Yep.
Did it come out of the ground? Does it have a mother if you choose to eat meat? Does it, like, do you know where it came from? Did it come from a plant and not made in a plant, to quote Michael Pollan?
Yes.
But using all of these as guidances in how we can fulfill our purpose, love others, serve others, and yet
Yep.
it's not always going to be perfect. You will drive for curbside. You may run by McDonald's on the turnpike in between somewhere. You Traveling is always difficult for me, at
Yeah.
least when
Yeah.
with eating, and like, airport food. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
So, and that's okay. And that's okay. And that's where the grace comes in.
Yeah.
So it's knowing what fuels. I can tell you, I'm very in tune with, it's taken me a long time and a lot of just taking notice, knowing what makes you feel well and what makes you feel not well, and then giving yourself grace then when you do have those things that make you not feel well, for like pizza for me. And it's like, okay, but you know what, that's not my normal, that's
Yeah.
not in the 85% of when I normally eat, and I'm just going to give myself grace and go on, so that way I can stay focused
Yeah.
on what God is wanting me to do, and not focused on, oh gosh, now I'm going to be 4 pounds heavier because I had a whole bunch of salt and other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's where I think, I don't know, I hope that made sense, but that's
Yeah.
kind of how I would apply the grace in that. No, so doing what will make your body and your mind, we don't forget that, because what we eat and how we move 100% affects our mental health.
Yes.
And then giving ourselves grace when we do mess up, because guess what? The minute you start shaming yourself
Yeah.
and putting yourself down, that impacts the rest of your body. 100%.
And I think just to add a little button there at the end, I know for me, I didn't know how food affected me. I had already been eating only real food for over a decade. And then I did, I wasn't like a fast where it was a no food fast, but it was kind of a detox, and you guys, I was eating like real food. I wasn't pigging out on anything artificial. I did that for 21 days and then I came off it. Like, no big deal. Oh my gosh, my body was losing its mind because I didn't realize that I was harming my body with some stuff that I was overindulging in. Like, for me, too much dairy, sometimes too much this or that. I had already identified coffee, as much as I like it. makes me angry at the world if I have too much of it. But there were certain foods in particular. It wasn't everything. It was like 4 things. It was such an amazingly violent response that I was miserable. And so when I cut those things out, I felt so much better pre that 21-day fast than after that. I was amazed, and I didn't know I could even tweak my diet even more after that. And guys, sometimes our bodies are so used to managing on whatever fuel we shove in them that we don't realize that if we switched our fuel, we would feel so much better. But God is amazing. He is a God of creation and regeneration. And I am amazed to say how healthy your body can be by simply watching what you eat. But for a lot of us, we don't even know what to watch once we've crossed into the real world food. Like, well, I'm eating real stuff. Some of us, though, we don't know we can feel even better. So I love this. I wish we had even more time. Amy and I said that in the beginning, we're not going to have enough time to shove everything because I have like 4 more questions here. But ladies, I just want to remind you, just like I said before you guys saw Amy, she is a personal trainer. She is a nutrition coach. Amy, do you take, this is one thing I didn't know, do you take clients online? Is that something you do?
Well, that's a good question, Charity. My answer used to be yes. And what I have realized is I feel like I am a more effective trainer when I just stick with in person.
100%.
So I do still have a few online, but there's always a revolving door of clients, and right now I'm just staying focused. However, and this is not something I let you know about, I do have an online class. It's a, what I call it is a complement to however you like to move. So if you like to run or spin or Zumba or strength train, whatever it is, it's a complement. It's called Be Complete, and it is all the things that we kind of need to be doing as we get older, like balance and
Yes.
core and stretching. I implement some, I call it pause, so a little bit of mind body
Mhm.
aspect. And people can get that at Graced Health, GRACED health.com / the letter B, not BE, but the letter B dash complete, because that's the acronym for everything. So that is something that I have had wonderful feedback about. It is low impact. It is low intensity. It's designed to be that way because depending on how you grew up, if you move a lot, you might have this mentality of like, I better huff and puff and sweat to get a good workout in. And I'm
Yes.
trying to break that
Which
as
isn't
well.
true. It's not true,
It's not
ladies.
true.
Add some
That's
weights in. You don't need to sweat like a pig, glisten like a pig, as Blair would say on Facts of Life. But you don't need to glisten like a pig to be effective. I'm amazed how streamlined your body can be. Just do what you can, lift what you can. And if you've got a meeting to go to, just do low impact. You don't even have to sweat. Move along. There's no
right.
excuse, because I used to think that too. I'm going to be sweaty. I'm going to be gross. I have to calculate in a shower. I have to calculate in redoing my hair. I have to calculate all these things. So I would never work out in the afternoon. Then when I realized, oh, I can get a really good workout and not have to do your
Right.
class. I could do the Be Complete class and maybe
Yes.
not be sweaty. Oh my gosh, I'm
Yes,
so
yes.
excited.
So I would love, so that I do have that as an option, and I am prayerfully considering putting together a program later in the year, which would be more of a course on aging strong.
Yes.
So mostly with preventing osteoporosis
Mhm.
or anyway, supporting the muscles and all of that. So I'm waiting for final go ahead from God on that.
Oh, I love it. And while you're talking to the Lord, I think ask him if you can expand your book into a Bible study, because I
Ah.
think I just don't rewrite the book. Just make a little workbook with it, because I think so many people, when I was researching this, because Amy doesn't know this about me, but my listeners do. Almost 10 years ago, I was a little over 10 years ago, I was given a flu shot, just a flu shot. I'd never had one in my life. Long story short, I got a flu shot and it triggered 3 autoimmune disorders in my body. That's just how my body reacted to it. Please don't send me letters of hate, but it's just the truth. And I went from healthy to no more healthy. And I had to rebuild my body based on my body now attacking itself. And I say all this to get back to the workbook. I know that's not what your book tackles, but when I was doing research, even in health and nutrition, trying to kind of grapple, even just 6 months ago, I was doing it for a different reason. There's just not a lot of Bible studies out there because I think there's a lot of wonderful stuff, ladies, by people who aren't Christians. I don't want to say that people who aren't Christians don't know, but just going back to the core of what Amy and I were talking about, we want to honor our bodies because of I am the Father, not I am me. And the world can really make us unintentionally incredibly self-centered. And being self-centered is not going to bring you into a healthy place. It never will. It never has. We don't want to do it out of pride or shame. And that's Amy. That's why when I was reading your book and just getting to know who you are, I just love how balanced and sensible you are, but also you give us a little kick in the butt, which is what we need. If this is my opinion, if you're never challenged in your walk with the Lord, get a new prayer partner because like something's wrong. Because if you just read the Bible over and over again, you're going to be challenged every single time you look at it, because the Holy Spirit will never stop working on you. He will never stop working on you. So, Amy, this has just been delightful. And all the links below, including the one you just mentioned, I know it came across the screen. Amy didn't see it, but it'll be there. And below, all the links are there, ladies, in case you have questions. If you have questions, feel free to ask questions below. And if anything's directed towards Amy specifically, I'll make sure she gets that. Otherwise, I would love for you to reach out to us by commenting below or just reaching out to us at strongchristianfemale@protonmail.com. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here. This has been awesome.
Oh my goodness. The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much, Charity.